I have failed my legion, my kinsman, my Primarch. He closed his eyes to the shame of it. You have not. Kano jerked, eyes snapping open as if bolting awake from the deepest sleep. Despite the chill and the fetor of the air, despite the bleak radiance of the Cygnus Eye stars bleeding through the sickly sky, there was bright amber and shining white before him. A towering figure, a mythic form carved by light and forged from gold and crimson. Sanguinius stood over him, the angel's expression that of a father, filled with all the conflicting emotions his soul could contain. Pride and sorrow, dread and elation, these and 100 more. My lord, Kano whispered, afraid to believe it. He reached out to touch the Primarch's arm. This was no vision. His fingers met sun-warmed ceramite. For a moment, the greatest sadness weighed the angel's patrician face. You gave much to bring me back, my son. You paid a high cost. We did what we thought was right. He raised a hand to silence him. We'll speak of that, but not now. He frowned. Where are your brothers, Kano? The legionary raised a weary hand and pointed towards the Cathedral of the Mark. Sanguinius nodded gravely, his amber eyes surveying the wreckage around them with dismay. Look at what has been wrought here, set in motion by lies. He stumbled back on his injured legs, his powerful wings unfurling to their fullest extent. I swear to you, it will go no further. Kano's liege lord spared him a look, briefly placing a hand on his shoulder. Your battle today has been fought and won. Now I will end this. The Legiones Astartes would earn many glories during the years of the expansion of the Great Crusade. Many would be honored with ranks befitting their martial skill and advisory council, and be remembered as legends among the histories of their chapters. Yet the greatest deeds are not always made by the most vaunted and storied of Astartes, for there exist some whose valor eclipses even the most venerated members of their ranks. For today, we shall elucidate the tale of the Blood Angel, whose sacrifice would enable the survival of his legion, chapter, and Primarch. The junior apothecary of the 9th Company of the Blood Angels, Meros. The origins of Meros are not known prior to his first notable deeds beginning during the end of the Great Crusade, for he would live in the mundanity of a line Astartes. Under the command of Captain Furio, Meros would earn the respect of his battle brothers during the campaign of Melchior against the Nephilim Xenos. Serving as an apothecary of the Blood Angels during the Great Crusade, as a junior squad medicae of the 9th Company, Meros would carry himself with quiet yet dutiful bearing. Summoned by Chapter Master Raldoron during the conclusion of the conflict, Meros would tend to the retrieval of the progenoid of his fallen battle brother, Alatros, within a Nephilim temple of worship. Unknown to Meros, Brother Alatros had succumbed to the thrall of the Red First during battle. Taking the gene seed from Meros, Raldoron would command Meros to never speak of their dealings within the temple. Perplexed at the strange orders ordained by the first captain, Meros would acquiesce and observe the first captain marking the armor of Alatros with a black inkstone. The import of this day would not be felt for several years, and with the Dark Eldar raid of the world of Nartaba Octus, such questions would be postponed. Evacuating the human populace, the 9th Legion would attempt to salvage the world's peoples before enacting exterminatus upon the planet. Whilst attending to an injured civilian, Meros would be attacked by a Drukhari raider and be shot in the back by the Dark Eldar splinter gun. Inflicted with a venom deadly even to the constitution of an Astartes, Meros would fall into a deep recovery sleep in order to endure the toxin. Placed within a golden sarcophagi by Sergeant Cassiel and his battle brother Saga, Meros would slumber and be submerged into a psychic fever dream. Communing with an Astartes of the blood, 10,000 years into the far future of the 41st millennium, Meros and Rathan would share a mysterious bond formed from their shared incarceration within the same golden tomb. together encountering visions of the being known as the Sanguinor, Meros would believe this luminous being to be his own Primarch, Sanguinius. Raffen would inform Meros that the Great Angel had been slain during the 31st millennium, and in the wake of his death, the Blood Angels Legion would be split into chapters. Refusing to believe such tales of his legion's downfall, Meros would attack Raffen within the Immaterium, and during their bout, be set upon by malevolent, phantasmic beings. Fighting side by side, Meros and Raffen would defeat their phantom foes, and with their survival achieved, Raffen would begin to awaken from his induced coma. Before being torn from his forebear's presence, Raffen would utter a single word as a warning: Horus. The Sanguinor would look unto Raffen and gesture silence by placing his golden gauntlet over the death mask of the Great Angel. Awakening from his slumber, Meros would see Ascalon, commander of the Sanguinary Guard, watching over him. Meros's wounds had been healed, yet the strange meeting with the fated angels had left him with many unanswered questions. Informed by Ascalon that the entirety of the Blood Angels Legion had been commanded by the War Master to traverse to the Cygnus cluster of space, the warning of Horus's betrayal would not be impressed upon Meros, for Horus Lupercal's betrayal would be imminent. Assigned to the Blood Angels' flagship, the Red Tier, Meros would join the full might of the 9th Legion in their investigation of the Cygnus system. Shortly after their arrival, the Blood Angels would discover dozens of wreckages of Voidcraft within the gravitic shadow of the planet Thoros. The husks of former civilian haulers and planetary defense craft would be an ill omen to behold, for they were not capable of leaving the Cygnus cluster. These vessels had left their homeworlds in a desperate bid to escape some unknown terror. Accompanying armed Astartes to meet with the scouting vessel Numitor, Meros would join with every apothecary of the 9th Legion to observe an anomaly within 4 sarcophagi containing the slain of the dead ships. Examining one such coffin, Meros would take a sample of blood from within and discover that the ichor of the dead had somehow been transformed from crimson red to an oily purple. The bodies had seemingly decayed from within, and most gruesomely, the bones within their bodies were missing. The husks of meat within the sarcophagi showed no sign of the removal of their skeletons, and by the command of First Captain Rauderon, the findings of the apothecaries would be shared with none within the fleet. Seeking answers, the Blood Angels would dispatch a task force to the world of Cygnus 6. Upon the hive city of Holst, the 9th Legion would join with a detachment of 3 Astartes of the 17th Legion, the Word-Bearers. Within their transport ship, Meros would brace himself as his Stormbird's pilot surrendered to living nightmares and plummeted the ship for a crash landing. Surviving the crash, the Astartes of the task force would find their communications disabled, yet pursue their objective. Within Holst Prime, the Astartes would hear distant gunfire and locate its origins. Brother Zagan of the Blood would mysteriously disappear, with only his recently fired bolter remaining as evidence of his presence. The Word-Bearers would be separated from the Blood Angels moments prior to being assailed by a horde of enemy contacts. Hurrying to the Word-Bearer's position, the task force would discover the dead body of a bearer of the Word. Oily fluid seeped from his wounds, the 2 remaining Word-Bearers preventing Meros from investigating the body. Set upon by inhabitants of the Hive, the task force would attempt to flee. Maggot-like creatures of unknown creation would besiege the task force, yet with the intervention of the reinforcements of the 5th Company, led by Nasir Amit, the Flesh Terror, the accursed creatures would be repelled. The Great Angel would conclude that the planet was beyond all hope of salvation and begin preparations to enact Exterminatus. As the task force retreated to the Red Tier, the Blood Angels' fleet would bombard the planet. The world screamed as it was consumed by the Emperor's cleansing fire, and as silence fell upon its ashen carcass, the Blood Angels would continue their investigation of the Cygnus cluster. Alongside the 24th Company, Meros would travel to the agri-world of Cygnus 6. Survivors of the planet had fled aboard the ship Stark Dagger, and the survivors had failed in their attempt to escape the planet. Rescued by the 9th Legion, they would inform the Blood Angels that the corruption stemmed from the heart of the system. Upon the world of Cygnus Prime, the Blood Angels would confront their malignant foe. The ruinous powers had laid claim to the souls of the planet and ensnared every human being to follow in their wicked ways. The Angels of Death would descend upon Cygnus Prime and with blade and bolter destroy the heretics. As the blood of mortal men slicked their blades, a new foe would present itself. Demons of the Warp, once thought to be mere tales of superstition among backwater worlds, would spill forth from the Cygnus capital. Sanguinius would lead his men in facing the Warp entities, and alongside Meros, face the greater demon, Kyrus the Perverse. For the Keeper of Secrets had ruled over the Cygnus cluster within his palace, the Cathedral of the Mark. Legionaries of the Ninth would cull thousands of demons upon the plains of the damned, as their Primarch Sanguinius besieged the palace alongside his elite First Company. Confronted by the Bloodthirster of Khorne, Ka'Bandha, Sanguinius would face the champion of the Blood God. The battle between angel and demon would wreak untold destruction as the titanic figures dealt one another devastating blows. Sanguinius's legs would be broken, and with the summoning of the Rage Fire, Ka'Bandha would gain the upper hand. Slaying 500 Blood Angels in his path of destruction, Sanguinius would be rendered unconscious with the trauma of the sudden deaths of so many of his cherished sons. Seeping a curse within the psyche of the Blood Angels, Ka'Bandha would sow a deep thirst for bloodshed within the soul of the Legion. Imbued with psychotic rage, the Blood Angels would give in to the fury within them and carve a bloody path across Cygnus Prime. Once noble paragons of virtue, the Ninth Legion now tore through the enemy ranks as feral berserkers, alike to their cousins, the World Eaters. Yet the loyalty to their Gene Father would not break, and the sons of Sanguinius would not turn upon their own kin. Harnessing their bloodlust against the demons, the Ninth Legion would tear through the Temple of the Mark and its demonic guardians. Yet for some unknown reason, Meros, First Captain Raldoron, and a small band of the Ninth Legion would be unaffected by the rage empowering the Blood Angels. Infiltrating the Temple of the Mark, Meros and the small band of Sane Astartes would, alongside the librarian Makani Kano and his brother Psykers, attempt to revive their Primarch. With their combined psychic might, the librarians, with the exception of Kano, would forfeit their lives to awaken Sanguinius. Once more taking to the field, the Great Angel would battle both Kyrus and Ka'Bandha. Casting Ka'Bandha into the Warp, the Great Angel's deeds would restore his legion to their former selves. Yet the misfortune upon the Cygnus system of the Ninth Legion and Meros had not yet concluded. Erebus, first chaplain of the Word-Bearers, had concocted a device of psychic creation. Dubbed the Rage Fire, the device would be drawn from the former Blood Angels captain of the 111th Company, Tagus, whom had perished on the world of 14020, known colloquially as Murder. The sorceries of chaos would utilize the long-dead captain's undiluted rage as a conduit to spread throughout the Ninth Legion. Fueled by uncontrollable fury, the Blood Angels would be all the easier to convert to the path of chaos in their worship of the Blood God. Kyrus the Perverse had been defeated, but still held the fate of the Ninth Legion within his grasp. Offering Sanguinius a bargain, Kyrus would state that should the Great Angel surrender to the Rage Fire, the curse of the Red Thirst within the Blood Angels would be absolved. The love of the Great Angel for his sons would be chronicled as among the most heartfelt and true among the sons of the Emperor, to which the ruinous powers would eagerly exploit. Accepting the offer proffered by the greater demon, Sanguinius would come close to binding his soul to the Rage Fire. Yet before Sanguinius could bind the pact, Meros would intervene. Leaping into the crystalline lattice, acting as the physical manifestation of their pact, Meros would sacrifice his soul for the love of his legion and noble Gene Father. Forewarned with the future downfall of his legion, Meros would not allow the Great Angel to fall, no matter the cost. Sanguinius was fated to face the War Master, and with the actions of Meros, the future of the Blood Angels would be set. Removing his own progenoid gland from his body, with the use of his Narfesium, Meros would toss the organ to his Primarch for use in preserving his gene-forged might. Meros would die this day, yet his legacy would live on within the Blood Angels. Vowing to honor his son's sacrifice, Sanguinius would watch as Meros' body transformed within the vortex of the crystalline structure. Pain contorted Meros' face as his body was agonizingly transfigured with fell power. His armor darkened as steam poured from his joints and a pair of ghostly, blood-slickened wings spread from his spine. Meros was gone, his body now a host of the chosen demon of Khorne, the Red Angel. Sanguinius would demand that the being relinquish its avatar, to which the Red Angel would refuse. A small fragment of Meros remained within the body of the creature, yet the being would retreat from the chamber. Sanguinius would vow to honor his valiant son's sacrifice, and one day find a means to free his soul from torment. Cygnus Prime would be purged of the demonic entities upon its surface, and thanks to the deeds of the martyred apothecary, the Blood Angels would be given a reprieve from their curse. Casting Kyrus the Perverse into the depths of the warp, with the tip of the blade in carmine, Sanguinius would grieve at his son's demise. The Red Angel, known to the traitors as the Cruor Angelus, would aid the War Master of Chaos in his gambit to overthrow the Emperor. The fate of the Red Angel remains a mystery to this day, yet the legacy of Meros endures. For within the 41st millennium, the gene seed of the Martyr of the Blood Angels remains in service. Implanted within the Blood Angel Sergeant, Rathan, the valor of the Savior of Sanguinius remains a constant reminder of the virtue of the Ninth Legion.
Hear me, creature. Let Meros hear this. Your gambit has failed. Whatever these powers are that you call master, whatever irrational choice my brother Horus has made to seek a pact with them, you stand defeated upon the cusp of victory. Do you understand the reason why?
This one, an exemplar of your kind. You were underestimated. The first would have taken you.
But it did not, because as long as one Blood Angel lives, he will be master of his spirit. He will not let the abyss that lies in the hearts of us all take him into the darkness. That is the truth you do not understand, the truth that Horus has forgotten. It is not the descent towards the shadow, nor the rise toward the light that makes us superior. It is the endless struggle between the two that greatness of character lies. We are tested, and we do not break. We will never fall. Take that to my brother, and tell him.
This has been a tale of the great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Meros epitomizes the honor and virtue of the Blood Angels, for it is by his deeds that the sons of Baal endure. For it is not solely the deeds of those chosen by fate to be champions of his Imperium who mold its future, and the courage of even the most unassuming of souls can define the greatest deeds of humanity.